Hello, everybody, and happy Wednesday. Welcome to another episode of Women Winning Wednesdays. I am Elsa W. Smith, your Maryland estate planning attorney, and I'm the owner of the law offices of Elsa W. Smith, located here in the great state of Maryland. Our mission is to empower women through estate planning. Through this platform, Women Winning Wednesdays, my mission, my hope is that through our guests and the educational content we present is to give you glimpses of what an empowered woman is and the tools that she needs to win. A bit of housekeeping. We are streaming on StreamYard onto Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. If you would like us to view your comments, and we would certainly like to view them, you need to give StreamYard permission to do so. And you can go to StreamYard.com/Facebook. StreamYard.com/Facebook for us to see your comments. I've got a fantastic guest lined up for you today. Raven Waterman is her name. And I want to tell you a bit about her before I bring her on. I'm so excited. And like you probably saw in one of my earlier posts today, if you are a woman, particularly in a leadership position, you definitely want to watch this episode. So a bit about Raven. She is a therapist and a certified executive leadership coach and the founder of Raven's Wings, LLC. She graduated with a bachelor's in social work from Seton Hall University and a master's in social work from Fordham University. She provides services throughout her career, and supervised, trained, coached social workers and professionals across many disciplines. She became a certified life coach and executive coach in 2019. She launched Raven's Wings in February of 2019. And through her practice, she utilizes her years of clinical and coaching training and professional experience to support people on their mental health journey and help leaders thrive and have a more significant impact. And just to give you just a list of the many services that she offers in the coaching space. She counsels people on career transitions, leadership and management skills, professional development, confident leadership, time management, as well as team building and staff coaching. And without further ado, I give you Raven Waterman. Hi, Raven.
Hello, Elsa. Hi.
It's so great to have you on the program. I gave the audience some tidbits about you. Is there anything? Did I miss anything?
I think you covered it. The only thing I would add is that I don't know if you said I'm in New York.
Okay. No, I didn't.
So I'll add that I'm a licensed therapist here in New York. But as a coach, I'm able to work with people because I provide services virtually. I'm able to work with people all over. So I will just add that.
Awesome. And like I told people, I've been really looking forward to this interview because people are like, well, what does, coaching and everything have to do with estate planning? Hopefully people will see that through the course of our conversation, but estate planning is not only about planning for what happens to your stuff, if you will, after you're not here, but it's about the quality of life while you are here. And the professionals, the experts that I bring on to the show are giving people tools to be their best selves. So by the time that they're meeting with someone like me, they're in the right frame of mind to plan for their present and plan for their future. So I just want to jump into it because we have a lot of good stuff to talk about today. Tell us like the nature of your business. We can see your credentials. You're a therapist as well as a coach. And I just want to focus on the coaching aspect for a second, but what is the nature of that business? And as a follow-up, what would I expect from executive coaching?
Okay. So as a leadership coach, and thank you for, sharing some of the areas that I, will work with somebody around, but really it's helping particularly a woman who is in a leadership role to thrive in that role, to be able to feel confident in the way that they are showing up as a leader. Because I think so many times, women are progressing through their careers, and yet there's still a feeling of like, oh, am I, is this a fluke? Is this, how do I really own my authority as a leader? How do I really, thrive versus survive in the role? So when I'm working with somebody one-on-one, what I'm doing is really helping them to tap into what makes them a unique leader, how they can best use that, and really hone in on what are your professional development goals. Where is it that you see yourself, and where would you like to be? And let's create a plan so that you can get there.
Wow. And tell us, I mean, what led you to be an executive leadership coach?
Honestly, I feel like it was just this natural progression of the work that I was doing as a clinical social worker. I was doing that for over 20 years
Mhm.
in various organizations. And as part of that work, not only working in direct practice, but also doing, a lot of leadership work myself. So being in an executive role or other roles, and offering, supervision and coaching to staff, to students, teaching within at Fordham. So I took a lot of that, and when it came time to think about what my next step was going to be, initially I was sort of thinking, oh, well, what's the next sort of title or position? And somebody said to me, is it about a title or a position, or a feeling? And that was sort of that light bulb moment of, I want to take all the things that I love right now about the work that I'm doing, and that's really what I want to focus on. And that led me to starting Raven's Wings.
Beautiful. Wow.
Mhm.
And I want it in particular. There are many women who I bring on, and I always like to touch on, what were the challenges, in your, on your path to success, because we try to keep it real here. We understand that, it wasn't all, champagne and roses and stuff
No.
throughout. So, and particularly, I want you to share with us some of your challenges. It's like, yeah, I really want people to get to know you.
Yeah.
What were your challenges particularly as a woman of color?
Mhm.
I'm particularly interested in that in
Yeah.
this coaching space.
Yeah. Well, I'll say throughout my career, I mean, as I was, progressing and being promoted, first of all, there were people who didn't, whether they expressly stated it or whether it was sort of in the innuendo, didn't think I was necessarily deserving of being in a position, whether it was, and people aren't always so explicit, but you can kind of read the room, right? So whether that was about my age, or being either one of the only or the only person of color, or only Black woman, right, in the environment. So there was having to sort of this sense of, I've got to, yes, I've earned this position, but now I've got to fight and earn for the buy-in. And sometimes having, my authority challenged in ways that I didn't see people challenging other people, or, or maybe our white counterparts. So there was that. There were times of really feeling isolated in the role, because as you're moving up, first of all, your peer group is getting smaller, and you don't always feel safe. You don't always feel safe to say, either I'm struggling with something, or I'm facing a particular challenge, when you're not sure if people are going to really be receptive to that and be able to support you. So there can, for myself, there were times of feeling isolated and really struggling to figure out, where is my safe space to talk through what my experience is, and to really be able to grow. I think when we're not able to be vulnerable, it's much harder to then be able to grow. And so that was definitely a challenge. I think another challenge is, there's always, unfortunately, this sort of stereotype of the angry Black woman, and this comes up so
Yeah.
much when I'm both coaching, but even in the therapeutic space. But where I think what it does is it takes away Black woman or a woman of color's right to feel the full range of her emotions, because you've got to, you know, contain it. You can't present as being angry or passionate, but sometimes you do need to be angry, and it's okay to be angry, right? And so I think that even having, you know, my own feelings or seeing other women where their feelings are almost weaponized against them, if you present in a way that could be perceived a certain way, then it automatically diminishes your message. But in the same vein, then you're not getting to really be your authentic self, or you don't feel like you can be your authentic self. And so that challenge, I think, you know, we want to be able to show up. I know I wanted to be able to show up and be who I was. And if something was, you know, I didn't agree with something, to be able to say that and speak on that, and not have this additional layer of like, oh, but I don't want to, you know, appear to be. And I think we carry that. And I think that can really take a tremendous toll.
So in addition to, and I was purposeful in asking you about your experience as a woman of color, because as women in general, you know, whether it's in the corporate space or in nonprofits, you know, executive positions or any just positions of leadership, as women in general, we deal with the, oh, you know, and I can say it because it's on the internet, you know, she's such a bitch, you know, when we have to make decisions perhaps that are not popular, or we're just leading. And because we're being assertive, not aggressive, assertive, and there is a difference, right? All of a sudden we get that. But now insert the fact that, you know, you're a woman of color, then you have the, oh, she's an angry Black woman, you know, thing that we've got to deal with as well. Right. So it's a double layer. So and it's something that in certain contexts, I've had to deal with that as well. You know, it's you know, if you're too nice, you get walked over. And as soon as you decide to be, you know, decisive, and you're like, okay, you were in a position to lead, you've heard, get all the buy-in that you can, but then ultimately the decision is yours. And then you're saying, oh my God, she's being such a bitch, you know, like you get all that. You're like, wait a minute, you know, where did that come from?
Right. And
you didn't tell Bill that. You didn't call Bill that when he was in my job, you know.
And if anything, you know, he was applauded and for being decisive and direct, and I think that having to, you know, people are going to think whatever they think, right? But I think having to confront it within ourselves and say, okay, I am struggling with this, and this is something that I want to break through, and it's going to, you know, it's going to be what it's going to be, but I don't want to hold myself back in this way. I don't want to be afraid to, you know, to be direct, to be decisive, because, oh, well, it might appear X, Y, and Z. And so breaking through that and getting to a point where, yeah, it is what it is. I'm going to be assertive. I'm going to be direct. You know, I'm going to let you know when something is an issue or what my perspective is, and we're going to have to deal. We're going to have to go from there. But making that shift, even for myself, was so incredibly empowering. So empowering.
I want to circle back on something you said before about what you observed with your clients about the lack maybe of finding a safe space. To and you for a time, you know, not having a safe space to vent. So we're just like, you know, walking pressure cookers. In essence. Yeah. How prevalent is that among women in either managerial or executive positions, that because they are the only one or one of, you know, to, you know, one of like among 500 or 1,000 or whatever, and that they have to lead the 5,000 in the corporation, and, you know, she's the only one. It's lonely, you know, and so that issue of having a safe space, is that one of the benefits of having a coach?
Yeah, absolutely. I think not only having a space where, as you said, you can express yourself and you can vent, but also then having that be a constructive space. Because oftentimes, and a lot of times, even when I'm coaching somebody, once they can process what is going on for them, they kind of have a sense of what the answers are, but they may be stuck. They may be, unable to kind of get to it because right now they've felt so isolated. They haven't felt safe. So they need to work, they need a space to kind of work through that. And then they need the space to be able to sort of, okay, so what do you want to do, right? What steps do you want to take? What, depending on the problem that we're looking to solve. But when you don't have that, and yeah, like you said, you're walking around and you're sort of just internalizing things and trying to work through them kind of on your own in that isolation, it's just mounting pressure, it's mounting stress, it's mounting burnout. And it often does impact the ability to, again, get out of that survival mode into more of a thriving mode. And I emphasize that because those, again, are two different things.
Now you have the dual, I guess, the benefit of being both a therapist and a leadership coach, which I don't think that that's a common, a combination. And I want to talk just for a moment on just the intersectionality of therapy and coaching, because there are a lot of, we all have our baggage, we all have our stories, and that impacts, I believe, how we show up as leaders. But if there are unresolved things, I mean, that requires somebody who's trained, I think, to help us work through that. I mean, can you speak to that, just the intersectionality of both of those?
Sure. So when I am coaching, I'm coaching, and when I'm doing therapy, I'm doing therapy, and keep them separate. But what I will say is that they can really complement each other very well. And so somebody who I might be working with as a coach, and we're really focused on what are their professional goals, what are the current dilemmas that they're facing and challenges that they're facing, and how can we create plans around that. Could and oftentimes really should also be seeing a therapist and working on some of their maybe emotional needs, right, or interpersonal challenges, because in reality you're going to take a lot of those same skills and you're going to bring them with you to the workplace. If you are dealing with stress or burnout, there really can be a component related to secondary trauma, for example. Particularly, we're talking about leaders in the nonprofit space who may be working with communities that are experiencing generational trauma, community-based trauma. And so as a helping professional or in the nonprofit organization, you're also exposed to that. And you're leading your teams, and your teams may be dealing with their own issues, right? So I think the intersection is that the same person can benefit from both. And that they can actually, the work that you do in both spaces can be very complementary. Right? Certainly feeling satisfied professionally is also going to support you feeling more satisfied personally.
Yeah. What are, I guess, what are some tips that you can give the viewers, particularly those who are in leadership positions? How do you show up consistently as a leader? What are some, exercises, trainings, and so forth that you recommend?
Well, one of the first things I'll say is invest in yourself. Invest in yourself. Don't wait for whatever organization you're working with to do that for you. Make that a priority for yourself, or advocate for it through your organization. And then when I say invest, yes, it is about making time to go to trainings, read or listen to professional podcasts, right, where you can learn about what's happening in different industries, or learn ideas or things that might be helpful to you in your role. Taking the time to, step back when you need to, and not doing that just when you go on vacation, but day to day, every day. Are you taking 10 to 15 minutes to just step away from the laptop, put the phone down, get up, take a walk, get some fresh air, breathe and reset. Are you, if it's about time, if it's about money, if it's about, finding resources, take the time to do that, so that while you're progressing in your career, you're also growing, right? You're growing in your skill set, you're growing in your ability to lead in a way that really is aligned with your own values. And we can't, when we're not investing in ourselves, when we're not giving ourselves the time to decompress or to step back, it's much more difficult to really think more critically and to think more broadly. To even think about, you're doing all of this and you're earning, maybe more money in your career or the higher position in your career, but are you thinking about what does the future look like? Are you thinking about what to do with that wealth after you've earned it? So even in that, it's, being in the moment, yes, but also knowing that you need time and you need space to kind of reflect and decompress, and you need to invest in yourself in different ways.
Are there, I find, sometimes the only people who can understand what you're going through are people that also do what you do. But, are there any, pitfalls, benefits or pitfalls in, in commiserating, I guess, with like-minded people? And can you speak to that, please?
I mean, that emotional support is a thing, if you get it, when you are able to talk to somebody who they get it, it's like, you don't even have to explain all the nuances. There's something about that can feel really, really good. And so I think that can be, a benefit. The other side of that is, it can also be an echo chamber. You're all sort of either in a similar place or a similar space. And, while that can feel good in a moment, sometimes you're leaving there maybe more burdened because now you've also taken on what's going on with them. Or you maybe didn't get some critical feedback that could help you to, move forward in a way that's constructive. So I think that it's yes, those spaces are really, really important. I wouldn't suggest those be your only spaces, right? You want to also find spaces that where people can be objective. And sometimes somebody coming with a different experience or a different perspective is exactly what you need in order to move you further than where you might be stuck right now.
Yeah, because our default is, to find a space of comfort. And where at least where we think that we are going to be safe. So if you've had a rough day, whether it's in court or it's in the boardroom or something else, and you're licking your wounds, you just want to get on a Zoom or someone and say, "Hey, girl." Yes, it's like,
right. And it's like, okay, that's great, but now what we gonna do? Right. So,
right.
And then what? Right. So I think it's also knowing what you need. Like in a moment, you might need that, but that might not be all you need in order to actually, do something constructive about it. Because you can find that, you're talking about or complaining about or commiserating about the same thing for 4, 5, 6 years, and it's like, okay, but nothing is different. Nothing has changed. You've gotten all this, emotional support, but you're still in the same space. You're still spinning the same wheels. And oftentimes I think that is also what contributes to that sense of like, just this is what's the point in this? What am I really doing? Right? Because I'm stuck where I'm at.
And I told you this during show prep that I wanted this conversation to flow organically. And I have another question for you. How does coaching look like for a person who, say, has their first leadership position, as opposed to someone who has been in leadership for a while and say they're at the cusp of, maybe getting a promotion where they're going to lead like, a multinational corporation? What does the coaching look like for those two?
So, one thing I'll say is it's always going to obviously be individualized, right? It's all, regardless of where somebody is at. But I will say, for the person who's just getting into their first leadership role, a lot of times there's almost a sense of shock at, like,
Mm,
okay, now this is something they probably have been working towards, or maybe propelled towards, and they don't, now they're there and they either don't realize, like, well, how did I get here? You know, oh my goodness, now what? And oftentimes the skills that you needed in order to get you to this point, they've been really beneficial, but now you're in the role and there's going to be new skills that you may have to either acquire or get much better at, because the role you're in now is going to challenge you in ways you hadn't been challenged before. So I think that's kind of a common feature for somebody who's newer into their leadership role. Somebody who's, you know, about to lead a multinational organization, or I think the difference there is they've had several different you know, promotions up to that point. They've probably experienced challenges both internally, externally. They have a bigger profile, but they also are often significantly more isolated in that role.
mm,
And they're really probably at a point of thinking, like, okay, how am I going to make my mark at this level, right? How am I going to either make, you know, this stand out in some way, or take this to, because there's probably a lot of pressure from the board and others to really take this to the next level. So what am I going to do? What's going to be my strategy in order to you know, take this someplace where it hasn't been before, because the status quo is probably not going to be enough.
You know, one of the things, something else that came to mind. I'm just enjoying this so much.
Hmm.
This so much.
Hmm.
When someone is just starting out in leadership, and thank you for addressing the question I just asked. But another thing that I find that um, I guess can be a little overwhelming is trying to see the long view of, like, you know, where is this going to take me, and where should it take me, where should this position take me, and what path am I on, you know. And a lot of times people don't have a roadmap, I guess. And I guess that's the benefit of a coach. But can you speak to the fact that a lot of people come in and, yeah, you're like, yay, you know, great, I've got this position. Like you said, there's the overwhelm, there's the, oh my God, what am I doing now?
Right.
But then it's after they have a chance to take a breath, you know. Sometimes, you know, it's kind of hard to see 5 years, you know, down the road, where should I be, what should this look like?
Yeah, no, I'm so glad you brought that, because that's so true. It again, I think a lot of times, as early in the in people's careers, the career is almost driving them, and it's
Right.
not necessarily that they are driving the career, where they have a sense of, like, the longer game, right? The, I want, you know, in 5 years, I want to be here, and here's why I want to be here, right?
Mm,
In 10 years, I want to be here, and here's why I want to be here. And
mm,
then being intentional about the way that they're showing up, again, how they're investing in themselves, what resources, network, what they're building in order to get to those places. So it's sort of like things are happening all along. They're, you know, they're earning these roles all along, but they're not necessarily driving it. It's, oh, okay, this opportunity has come up, I'm going to go for it, or it seems like the next thing I should go for. But why? Why, you know, what is it about that that is going to benefit you? How is that serving you? You know, how does that align with what your values are, what your personal mission is? And when we don't take time to kind of like you said, reflect on that, think that through, you can find yourself, you know, however many years, particularly into leadership, and sort of going like, well, I'm here, but I don't really know, I don't know why. I don't know what I want to get out of this. I don't know if I feel fulfilled in what I'm doing, because it hasn't really been about, oh, this is what's of value to me. And I'm going to go after this because it aligns with that value, or it aligns with what my actual goals are for my life.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, I heard, and what resonated me is why is like your why. It's like your compass,
Yeah. Oh, I love
right?
that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
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 I'm telling you, I'm
Right.
really feeling this conversation. It's really helping me too.
Hmm.
But yeah, because of my why is what energizes me to do everything I do in my business, and um, it really helps to provide you focus. And obviously, the woman at 51 wishes that I knew all that I know now at, like, 25 or 30,
Hmm.
where the why wasn't focused. It was like, look, I'm just trying to get ahead.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Hmm.
And in
Hmm.
some cases it can be position, sometimes it can be money and position that's
Hmm.
driving. And as you were saying before, like, drive the career is driving you as opposed to you driving it, so that
Yeah.
can lead to being in jobs where you're not happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're
I,
making
I,
money, but you're not happy.
I just wanna say, and it all, when you're clearer on your why, it makes it easier to also say no to things.
Ooh, ooh, and that can be
And
so hard.
oh, it's so hard. It can make it so much easier to say no to things, to know when to walk away from something. And that is very challenging, because you once you're clear about, like, I know the path I'm trying to be on, I know what I'm trying to do, things will suddenly be jumping out at you from the like from nowhere. And if you're not careful, you'll say yes to everything. You don't want to miss out on anything. You think everything is the thing you should chase. And then you look up and you're so far off of what is meaningful to you or what your path is, that it's again, you're kind of lost. It's like, well, what is my purpose here? Because I've said yes to everything and I'm doing all the things, but none of this really feels right, or none of this really aligns with what I see as, being important to me. So that's
Mm.
one thing that you made me, think I wanted to say that, because I think I that's one thing I had to learn to practice, and I was so proud of myself when I was able to either walk away from opportunities or say, you know what, no, I'm not going to take that on, because that doesn't align with what I'm ultimately trying to do.
I know we're over time, but I am really enjoying this. But before we start wrapping up, can you
Mhm.
please speak to the isolation that leaders feel? And as a follow-up, is there a healthy isolation?
Oh, good. Oh, okay.
That came to
So
me too. I'm telling you, the
oh,
ideas are flowing.
thank you. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think the isolation, and this is true whether you're, again, as you get higher up in your career. This can be true even if, depending on if you work in a small organization, there may not be many peers. This can be true as an entrepreneur and running your own, business, that it can be isolating. There can be a sense of like, this experience, I don't have anyone or any space to really share this experience with other people who will get it, right, who will really understand like what I'm going through, or it doesn't feel safe for me to really share the highs and lows of what I'm experiencing, because in anything that we're doing there're going to be highs and lows. You can love the work you're doing and have at parts of it that you just dread, right, or you don't feel the most suited to do or the most skilled at. So I think that isolation can be a part of leadership, and so really finding again those safe spaces, whether that is, again, peer support is wonderful, mentorships are wonderful, um, but knowing that those will offer you different things, right? So your peers, you can commiserate, they may or may not be able to really focus on your issue, and you may end up, which you should, right, needing to kind of support them too.
Mhm.
Mentorship can be wonderful, but it's often informal. It's sort of at the person, at your availability, the person's availability, and it can kind of be more informal. Coaching can be really beneficial. It's a professional relationship. It's targeted. You set out sort of a term of working together, identify goals, identify action plans. So it's much more structured. Um, And certainly, as we were saying before, therapy can also be very beneficial to address some emotional needs and mental health needs that can definitely improve the way that you lead and you engage in relationships. So those are all different forms of support, and none of them are mutually exclusive. To your question about can isolation be beneficial, I think taking time to yourself can definitely be beneficial. Everybody thrives in different things. Some people do thrive being constantly surrounded by people, and they thrive off that energy. They are inspired by that, and so if that works for you, then so be it. But I do think that taking time, stepping back, and just being with your own thoughts, and kind of creating like a parking lot of your own ideas can really be a helpful kind of isolation, right? Self-selected isolation and time away.
Last question. How does the coach get coached?
So I have to say, I'm coaching myself every day of, okay, let's check in, how we doing, where we at, right? But in reality, I have definitely, hired people to, support me in the areas where I either didn't have the technical skill, the know-how, the time, the bandwidth. One thing I especially going into this entrepreneur journey, was very clear with myself about is I don't expect myself to do it alone. And I don't think I have to know all the things. I have an expertise, but if somebody else, if it's an area that I'm not an expert in, I am more than happy to get that support, because then I'm more productive that way. So it's the daily check-ins, and then it's get the help when I need the help.
Yeah, for the people in the back of the room, I hope you're listening to it. We cannot do this alone. Amen.
Right. That's right.
So Raven, how can people get in contact with you? I'm going to put your contact information again, but what are the different ways people can reach you?
Sure. So on Instagram, I'm at Raven's Wings LLC. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Raven Waterman. And also as you have there, my website, ravenswingsllc.com. And I also have my own podcast, Lead, Inspire, Grow, which is on all the major podcast platforms. And I'd love for people to take a listen, to write into the show and ask questions.
Wonderful. Raven, I just want to thank you so much. We could have talked easily for another couple of hours. I've enjoyed this so much and I've enjoyed you. And thank you for bringing your expertise, your wisdom, your knowledge, experience to the Women Winning Wednesdays audience. It's truly been a pleasure, and I hope you've enjoyed it as well.
I have, Elsa. Thank you so much for having me on. This has been fantastic.
You're so welcome. And I will talk to you soon. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Everyone, wasn't she fabulous? That was Raven Waterman. I'm sure that some of you are probably wondering, how does all this like leadership coaching, what does it have to do with estate planning, which is what I do? As I mentioned at the top of the show, I am intent on bringing you people and knowledge and tips on being an empowered woman. This is an example of that. I brought an expert on who's going to help you, to help all of us really, how to be our best selves. And that is actually the ideal state for me, someone like me, an estate planner, to meet with you when you are clear in what you want, because an estate plan is a reflection of, I believe, where you are mentally, spiritually, and financially at any given time. And as that changes, so should your estate plan. And the ideal place to be is confident, knowing what you want, and not being afraid to express it via an estate plan. So what I do, again, I'm a wills and estate planning attorney. I'm licensed in Maryland and the District of Columbia. I'm the owner of the law offices of Elsa W. Smith. If you want to have a conversation about what your legacy should look like, if you want guidance on trying to get a handle on all the balls that you have in the air and really getting a plan in place to protect your quality of life while you're here, as well as your assets and your family. Particularly love your young ones, when you're not, or if, when the time comes that you're no longer here. So that's what I do. You can get in contact with me on my website, elsawsmithlaw.com. Get in contact with me via phone. I'm also on social media, of course, on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. While you're on my YouTube channel, I want you to view and subscribe so that you don't miss any of the content that we put out each week. It's all free. If you go to my website, to the resources page, we're always adding new resources. They're all free, by the way, because it's our commitment to bring you value. I want to thank you again for joining me on this episode of Women Winning Wednesdays. I look forward to seeing all of you next week. Take care and be well. Have a great week.